All right, folks. Don Wilson here, leader of the BC Libertarian Party, family lawyer in BC, and YouTube's second favorite movie reviewer. Um, how do you like this angle? It's dynamic. It's not the right angle. It's not straight on. I chose this new angle to reflect the movie I watched tonight, which was Spider-Man Into the Multiverse. Very cool movie. If you like animation at all, I thought it was very cool. It really pushed animation into a new space, visually, very advanced. Really taking animation into a whole new world, really. So Spider-Man Into the Multiverse, it did diversity well, in the sense that it didn't do diversity. It did good storytelling with a diverse set of naturally existing characters who had their own place, who fit into the story without feeling like they were add-ons. As I said, the animation was exceptional. It was groundbreaking. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I know I said that last week, so this is 2 weeks in a row of very cool movies, visually for me, to see. Last week, Vice, and this week, Spider-Man, both very visually dynamic films. I don't know why am I bringing Vice into this? The reason I'm bringing Vice into this is because as I'm watching this movie, Spider-Man, I feel like my rating system is breaking down because I'm watching this thinking this deserves a 4.5 or a 5 or a 4. I don't know. I think maybe a 4, but I think I'm moving the goalposts as I'm watching this movie a little bit, because it was really excellent, really exciting, really dynamic, really organic, very creative. Movie making and storytelling, and certainly I think the most dynamic and organic and most interesting Spider-Man story I have ever seen. I'm not a fan of Spider-Man, but it always seemed a little bit staid to me, a bit just too, pardon me, just a bit too stereotypical with, this kid who is bitten by a spider, and that's fine, a radioactive spider, but instead of like making that out as if that is like some revolutionary idea, recognize that that's not really particularly creative. And in this movie, that part of the story was like this much, and the rest of it was just this character, this young young man, experiencing the madness. No, madness is too far, but the craziness of that's much more tactical. The craziness that would be associated with being bit by a radioactive spider and getting superpowers. Yeah, the story was interesting in that it gave less, and it made less more, if I can say that. It didn't try to oversell its features, it didn't try to oversell its characters. Um, it made very cool villains here that, you know, it, it was very adept at creating these villains that had very short amount of time on screen, but were like very quickly established as very menacing and interesting and dynamic and deep, in a sense of having some believable impetus and animus, and just the characters, the villains were, even the villains who, and often villains are more two-dimensional than heroes. The villains were so cool in this, like just of course how they were drawn is part of it, expertly, magnificently drawn, but written as well. Like very, the writing was very concise, very efficient writing, to get these villains in there and to get them drawn in the writing very quickly and very well to make them very foreboding in 3 or 4 scenes to create these whole character arcs out of uh, with these villains and turn them into sort of super villains with really just you know like 200 seconds of screen time was very cool. I really admired that work with both the storytelling and the drawing on those characters. I like animation. I've always grown up in an animated world. I guess I grew up with The Simpsons and then later I suppose Family Park and South Park certainly. Reboot. Um, Others. I'm just off the top of my head. So I really loved watching this movie keep advancing that to the modern times, like with the technology and the visual style. I said this last week, so it feels like I'm just going to say this every week again, a week now. But Spider-Man, indeed, was unlike any movie I've ever seen before, and that's great. That's a cool experience to go and just see visually some completely new visual idea on the big screen and the big sound. And if that, on the sound, that's if I was going to criticize this movie, it was in the sound that I there was a few times I felt like I lost the ability to hear some of the characters, and the depth of the sound was not as sophisticated and interesting and engaging and of a quality as the animation and the story I found. And well, I don't want to pretend to be a critic here, but or overstate my knowledge of sound. But there was just a couple of times where I couldn't hear what the characters were saying. So to that extent, I can be an expert. I can be an expert in what I can hear and what I can't hear. So on that basis, I criticize the sound. But visually, a very cool film, a nice, very brisk story that had pathos, had a nice arc, very simply told, but it was engaging as well, and really, I think also for Spider-Man fans, and I said before, I'm not particularly a Spider-Man fan. I like more Wolverine. I like Batman. I like the X-Men. Spider-Man, I don't know. It just didn't seem that interesting to me as bit by a spider. But I think, based on the aesthetic quality of the movie and the choices made therein, I believe this is canon, and that is important. We see movies like Star Wars, and see movies like Star Trek, and Star Trek, the TV show Discovery, interfering with canon, and not just them, but those are the most obvious examples. And when you disrespect canon, you kind of disrespect your fans, and you just disrespect the story that you're telling. At least at the very most brutish level, you don't give fans what they're wanting, which is more of this. If fans are into something, they're into this quality story and world that you've developed. So that's really where Star Wars has, or one of the areas Star Wars has recently gone wrong, is by kind of disregarding their canon and by throwing it away. They've insulted everything that's gone before them. So it wasn't just, I said this before, it wasn't just a bad movie, but it was a movie that ruined all other Star Wars movies. And Star Trek Discovery, and to an extent as well, the other movies that have been coming out in the last 4 or 5 years. They didn't. I want to go so far as to say that they ruined it, but you get a sense where if you don't respect the canon of the source material, you're not going to satisfy your audience, and you're missing something. So here, not the case. I really felt like the writers and the creators of this, directors, producers, the whole team, I got the sense that they love Spider-Man. and that they were reimagining Spider-Man and telling a brand new Spider-Man story in a totally new way. And in the story as well, I think that I think that it could be canon, um, as bizarre and strange and out there that and novel that this story was. I think that you could put. They respected the story enough to even fit the story right into the canonical Spider-Man world. So again, I'm not a Spider-Man fan, so I don't want to be claimed to be an authority on that fact. But that was just it something was happening there in the first half an hour about and that was my impression from it. So respect for the canon, appreciation for the canon. Excellent animation, very novel, um, novel storytelling. Fresh ideas, all very cool stuff. Really enjoyed this movie as a creative novel enterprise. So, and that's why I chose this new. Look how cool this camera angle is, right? I mean, I don't know if it's cool, but it's different. Sometimes different is different. Often different is different. Spider-Man Into the Multiverse. Very cool. Very cool movie, especially if you like animation. And I think if you like Spider-Man, I wasn't a Spider-Man fan, so I don't know. Let me know if I'm off base on that. But it seemed to me like they told a brand new Spider-Man story in a very cool and compelling way. A lot of attention to detail and great passion, great creativity, and respected the source material while making it completely modern and current. Awesome. Great work. Great work, Spider-Man. That's all. I can't say I need to work on my outro. I'll develop it. That one's already used. Thanks for watching.